So it's been on my heart to put together a small series, who knows if anybody will ever see it, called I Believe. In my view, there are so many false beliefs that are based in ignorance and lies that this world is promoting one false belief system after another while undermining the most true and the best and the life-giving beliefs of our fathers. It seems to me to be a hostile force, unlike virtually anything seen in the history of the world as far as I can tell. It's been a long time coming. So I believe in God. Why do I believe in God? Has not science undermined such a medieval belief system? Seems to me it's quite the opposite. Seems to me that God has proved, that science has proved the existence of God. Where has all this world come from? We say the Big Bang. Well, the Big Bang, according to science, was formed or happened at a specific time. It goes back. It doesn't go back forever. It only goes back a certain amount of time. Whether it's billions of years or thousands of years is irrelevant. In fact, according to the theory of relativity, who knows? But if there was a beginning, that means there was a time without time, so to speak. If there was no time, there can be no change. For example, velocity is distance over time. If you have no time, you don't go any distance. So tell me, how do you get a beginning to the universe when there is no possibility of change? You're going from 0 to 1. That's actually an infinite amount of change. The only mathematical possibility is that there is a being that is eternal, that has no beginning or end. The first cause, an uncaused cause, something that is not caused but can cause other things. And we call that God. Doesn't matter what you call it, I suppose. It's a mathematical reality. If this cause had a cause, then that cause would have to be the uncaused cause, or one before it. But there would have to be an uncaused cause, and if it was not that, then it's not the explanation to the beginning of the universe. So, God has to exist. And that's the only way that the universe can exist. There is no possibility other than that. But we can determine even more than that. Going from 0 to 1 is an infinite change. An infinite change takes an infinite being or infinite power. If nothing exists and then something exists, that's a gap. For example, something has matter, and that matter is composed of energy. You hear of E equals mc squared. Well, to bring no energy into an energetic state is something that would have to come from that first being. Well, so not only is that an infinite change, but that first being would have to impart energy into the universe without being changed itself. Why? Because if that being could be changed, then it wouldn't be eternal, would it? The being would have to be simple, without parts or complexity, because if there were parts, then there would have to be a process or time in which those parts were assembled. That being would have to be simple without parts. Simple does not mean easy to understand, nor does complex mean that it's easy to understand or hard to understand. The being would have to be simple, and therefore, when it imparted energy into the universe, it was not changed. The only way that could happen is if it were a source of infinite energy, because infinity minus 1 is still infinity. But any other number minus 1 is a different number. So therefore we know that not only is this being eternal and powerful, it is powerful. It's eternal and it's powerful. I don't think too many people would have a problem, the skeptic, with what we've said so far. Okay, so there's an infinite source of energy that's always existed. Very good. I think the rub comes in when you say that infinite energy is personable, that it cares. Well, how can such a thing be? Well, we have to ask a very simple question, I would argue. Why? Why is the universe here? Why would that infinitely powerful and eternal being bring a universe into existence? Seems to me that there are only two reasons that anything happens: because somebody wants it or needs it. So did that infinite being need a universe? That would seem awfully odd, right? This infinite being is clearly self-subsistent. It's eternal. Could have kept on being without there ever being a universe. But it did, so why? Well, it couldn't be out of a strict necessity. It seems that it would have to be out of a desire. Okay, so if out of a desire, why? Well, it seems also that this being has an infinite intelligence. Why say that? Well, when we look at the universe, it is finely tuned. When we look at the way matter is designed, the proportions of the elements, the fundamental constants are in a perfect balance with one another. When we look at life, it's got a complexity, it's got a design that's literally beyond human understanding. I don't see a choice but that this infinite being would have an infinite knowledge. You could even argue, couldn't you, that if you had infinite power, that would lead to infinite knowledge? Not just knowledge of all the things that are, but all the things that could be. Seems that you would need that in order to bring something from nothing. You would need power and knowledge. Well, if you have an infinite amount of knowledge, then you are able to determine if something is greater or less than something else. Proportionality. So what? Well, if you know that something is greater and something is lesser and you have the power to do it, if you have perfect power and perfect knowledge, how do you not do what's best? Seems to me that when you have the power to do good and the knowledge to do it, it happens. So, you have knowledge and you have power, and so it's better to create a being outside of yourself than to not create a being or a world outside of yourself. But why? Well, it seems to me that love is such a fundamental facet of humanity. It's what forms families. It's what binds civilizations together. It's what has motivated the greatest art and even science to find a cure for something that's hurting humanity. To love is clearly greater than not to love. And it's clearly better to love outside of yourself than to not love outside of yourself. So God, being, is fundamentally love, causes him to create, a being in his own image and likeness that he can love. So I believe in God, and I believe in a God that is a loving God, an all-powerful God, an eternal and simple God.